It is Tuesday, October the 1st, 2024, and I have a few questions for you. Did you know that it is embedded in gang culture that juveniles under 18 years of age be willing to risk incarceration because the punishment for certain crimes is differentiated in severity based upon age, minor versus adult? You'll do less time, so take it for the team. If their leaders tell them it's honorable and other members have done it before, they comply. This is the beginning of cyclical behavior, thinking, and recidivism. Who then needs to be held accountable? For what and why? Did you know that in the United States, parents can have their rights as parents legally terminated, creating orphans who are in the custody of the state by law? This is a judicial process.
To tell them that my name is John Adrian J.J. Velasquez.
Velasquez has been physically free since 2021, when then New York Governor Andrew Cuomo commuted his sentence, granting him parole but leaving him stained with the mark of a convicted felon.
I had curfew. I couldn't travel out of the state without permission. If I wanted to go on a date, I needed permission.
Also there to witness his exoneration, Dateline producer Dan Slepian, whose dogged 22-year pursuit of the truth in JJ's case began with a series of prison letters he received from JJ.
I can go on and on about this miscarriage of justice.
What did that mean to you to have someone listen to you?
Well, besides my mother, Dan's my hero. Everybody knows that. Like, if it wasn't for Dan, I'd still be sitting in a cage.
Well, Dan, every time we've talked about this story, you said you're not advocating for JJ. You're advocating for the truth. Did the truth prevail?
Yeah, the truth finally did prevail. But frankly, everybody knew the truth for a very, very long time. And it took a long time for the court to finally recognize it.
The DA's review of JJ's conviction looked at several factors, including recanted eyewitness testimonies and DNA evidence. JJ's case, one of several wrongful conviction cases unearthed by Slepian, recounted in his book, The Sing Sing Files. It's the cases undiscovered that haunt both men. You feel that you left a lot of innocent guys behind when you left prison?
I know I left a lot of innocent people behind.
Is that common?
It's very common.
Working on their behalf, JJ's mission as he moves forward and catches his breath for the first time in a very long time. Does the world feel a little different now?
Definitely does. I can feel the air is like cleaner for me, and I feel different.
Our thanks to Lester Holt for that story. And Dan Slepian joins me now. He's an investigative producer with NBC's Dateline, and as you saw there, gave a big hug to JJ in that courtroom yesterday. Dan, it's good to have you here with me on Daily. Talk to me about what it was like to be there in person for this final piece of the story.
Thanks for having me. It was a long time coming. You know, being in the courtroom yesterday was incredibly emotional. But at the same time, while it was a moment of joy, it was also bittersweet. Mm-hmm. This was a long time coming. You know, JJ, the case against JJ was so weak. The evidence of his innocence was so obvious. So for me, it wasn't hard to be happy, but at the same time, I was very thoughtful about all of those years that he's lost, but also about how many other people that are similarly situated that don't have the attention that he has and that aren't going to get the justice that he saw yesterday.
Dan, you are known for your in-depth investigations into wrongful convictions. JJ sent you those letters that became part of a podcast. What do you think people would be surprised by about our justice system? And I think Lester was surprised in that interview when JJ said, I've left a lot of people, a lot of innocent people behind.
Let's pause here for a moment and look at the data on overcriminalization in the United States. If these statistics are accurate and using 5% as a standard number, we look at 1.8 million people incarcerated as of 2023. That means that there are almost 100,000 people incarcerated currently who are innocent.
Right. What has shocked me over the years and still, believe it or not, continues to surprise me all these decades later, and what I think most people will be surprised about, is how unbelievably resistant the system is to correct its mistakes. It's not just occasional errors. It's not just, there are just a few people. These are systemic issues in which the system subtly and not so subtly encourages people with great responsibility to act irresponsibly in ways that affects people's lives without them even knowing it. When someone's convicted, there's finality. And when that burden shifts for you to prove you're innocent, you need a bolt of lightning to strike the courthouse door to get another day.
Or someone like Dan Slepian on your side. Dan, we appreciate everything you've done, and thanks for being on the show. And the book is called The Sing Sing Files. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Fani Willis is the district attorney of Fulton County, Georgia, which contains most of Atlanta, serving since 2021. She's the first woman to hold the office. Willis investigated the 2020 presidential election in Georgia, which resulted in indictments against Donald Trump and 18 alleged co-conspirators on the charges of racketeering and other criminal charges. On January 8, 2024, a defendant filed a pretrial motion to dismiss the indictment and disqualify Willis and her office from prosecuting the RICO case against them due to Willis having a conflict of interest related to her personal relationship with lead prosecutor Nathan Wade. On February 15, 2024, Judge Scott McAfee started an evidentiary hearing where he subsequently ruled on March 15, 2024, that either Willis, along with her office, or Wade must leave the case because their relationship brought about a significant appearance of impropriety. He found no conflict of interest as there was insufficient evidence Willis had benefited financially. Based on the judge's ruling, Nathan Wade resigned from the case a few hours later in order to move this case forward as quickly as possible, he said. In May 2024, the Georgia Court of Appeals agreed to hear an appeal to the ruling, revisiting whether Willis may be allowed to stay on the case. If you want to know my opinion about Judge Scott McAfee, I am a fan. Throughout the hearings, he was a fair and impartial judge who ultimately was able to come up with a fair corrective action plan for the pretrial motion filed against Fani on behalf of Donald Trump and his co-conspirators. These actions obviously have delayed the prosecution of Donald Trump for the charges for which he was indicted, which was the intent when the pretrial motion was filed, and against the ruling which was appealed in May. If you are curious about my opinion of Fani Willis, I am a fan. She has often been accused of being too angry because she is aggressive and passionate in seeking justice. If you want to know my opinion about her relationship with Nathan Wade, it has been my hope that they did not, in fact, separate and that they ultimately become married. I was not a fan of Fani Willis until I did my own investigation of her background and character, and then closely followed the testimony in the trial to discern her level of morality and character as well as that of Nathan. I would now like to share with you one of those clips, and I will also include in the description all of the clips that I gathered from her hearings so that you have an opportunity to use some discernment yourself.
Thank you. Did Miss Willis, and this is the last question, did Miss Willis tell you why she had sought you, why you had been her choice?
No, I hadn't, but, I get consulted fairly often on major cases.
Would you believe, based on circumstances in which you were given the offer, that it had to do with the fact that you had handled complex and high-profile cases in the past?
It could have been. I know her very well. I tried a case against her. She worked for the JQC, and I represented Judge Robert Crawford, Mac Crawford, and she prosecuted him, and I defended him. She beat me at the trial. I turned it around at the Supreme Court.
So you had some experience with
Oh, I had plenty of experience with him. She's a very qualified young, well, everybody's young to me, but she's a very qualified young woman.
After that one occasion, did you have any other contact with her in reference to the position itself or who she might?
Includes the fundamental freedom of a woman to be able to make decisions about her own body and not have her government telling her what to do. Yes, we must trust women. And we all know how we got here. When Donald Trump was president, he hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court, the Court of Thurgood and RBG, with the intention that they would overturn the protection, and as he intended, they did. Extremists that have passed laws that criminalize and punish women in 2 states of those states, they provide for prison for life for simply providing reproductive care, the care they so earnestly and rightly believe must be delivered. Many of these bans make no exception even for rape and incest. Now, many of you know I started my career as a prosecutor, specializing in crimes of violence against women and children. And so I say to you then, from that experience and from the work that I've done, the idea that someone who survives a crime of violence to their body, a violation of their body, would not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next, that's immoral. If she chooses, she will talk with her pastor, her priest, her rabbi, her imam. But it should not be the government or Donald Trump telling her what to do with her body. And think about it. These hypocrites want to start talking about this is in the best interest of women and children. Well, where you been? Where you been when it comes to taking care of the women and children of America?